Hello, I'm Nicole Gormley. I'm a hematologist and the Division Director of the Division of Hematologic Malignancies 2 at the FDA. I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present today, and I'll share with you a brief overview of some of the racial and ethnic disparities we've observed in oncology clinical trials and what we at the FDA are doing to advance health equity. So I'll use multiple myeloma as an example for this discussion, primarily because multiple myeloma is a disease where we see a greater incidence of disease among African Americans compared with Caucasians, and we see differences in disease biology, including an earlier age of diagnosis, greater incidence of precursor disease, and different cytogenetic profiles based on race and ethnicity. That being said, many of these principles apply to other oncologic diseases, and we see underrepresentation and disparities among other races, ethnicities, and in older adult patients. So we conducted an analysis of applications submitted to the FDA for approval for multiple myeloma between 2006 and 2019. There were 19 trials submitted during this time, inclusive of over 10,000 patients. Of those, 84% were Caucasian, 4% were Black or African American, less than 1% were American Indian or Alaska Natives, and only 4% were of Hispanic ethnicity. And just for context, it's important to recall that, again, there is a 2-to-1 greater incidence of multiple myeloma in African Americans, such that they are thought to represent approximately 20% of those patients with multiple myeloma in the United States. So this represents a significant underrepresentation just based on the disease epidemiology. So in part, based on these findings, the FDA co-hosted a public workshop with AACR, or the American Association for Cancer Research, in February of 2020, examining the underrepresentation of African Americans in multiple myeloma clinical trials. As a result of this workshop, we published recommendations on eliminating racial disparities in multiple myeloma and blood cancer discoveries in 2021. The paper outlines recommendations from the workshop that span pre-approval clinical trials, post-approval trials, and real-world data. While the discussion on healthcare inequities has experienced significant more attention in the past 2 years, this issue is a long-standing one, and FDA's efforts to address this issue has been ongoing for many years. On this slide, I'm showing several of the guidances that were published to address and advance equity. The first being guidance on the collection of race and ethnicity data in clinical trials. Also, guidances discussing enrollment practices and eligibility criteria, again with an effort to enhance diversity. And then even most recently, guidances on the COVID pandemic response and the underscoring the importance of having diverse and representative populations included in those clinical trials. Most recently, in April of this year, the FDA published a draft guidance on diversity plans to improve enrollment of underrepresented racial and ethnic populations. The guidance describes when a diversity plan is recommended, the timelines and processes for submission, and the content of these diversity plans. And really, the diversity plan should include an overview of the disease, including the discussion of where the product is in development, and specific enrollment goals based on the disease epidemiology, among other factors, and measures to enroll and retain participants as well. So in conclusion, underrepresentation of racial and ethnic minorities in oncology trials used to support registration is a recognized phenomena, not just in multiple myeloma, but in other diseases. And there is a long understanding that there's underrepresentation of racial and ethnic minorities in oncology clinical trials used to support registration. There are ongoing efforts to address these disparities, and the FDA's position is that representation should be addressed throughout a drug's development. And diversity plans are a new tool that should be included to plan for diverse enrollment in trials intended to support marketing submission. So I just wanted to include that patient engagement is really important from an FDA perspective, and there's multiple ways to connect with the FDA, and I've included contact information here, whether that be with the OC Oncology Center of Excellence Project Community or Project Equity, information about advisory committee meetings, and other patient-focused drug development meetings. These are my acknowledgments. And thank you very much for your time and attention.